We're checking back in with State Representative Jackie Chan of Quincy for our first Jackie Talk of February. Jackie, how are you?
Hey, happy February on this actually fairly warm for us these days on what's today's the 5th of February, Thursday. So yeah, no, welcome to like balmy weather at 26 degrees according to the computer at the bottom of the screen here.
Yeah, I mean, anything out of the teens is like spring.
Well, my friends, my family who come from warmer climates don't believe this thing called weatherization, which is actually true. I mean, we actually adapt. People will adapt to weather despite it, no matter what, it's going to be cold. But we do adapt. We start to adjust somewhat. And unfortunately, some of us, including myself, pick up an extra few pounds during the winter months. But we do adapt. And it's amazing when we have consistently single digits weather and then it hits like 35, you feel like it's 70.
It's true. Well, I mean, there are people that live in much harsher climates than we do, and do quite well.
Well, again, it's really, yeah. I mean, I'm sure people listening, well, it's cold no matter what. I'm like, yeah, it's cold no matter
Oh,
what.
it's definitely cold, no
It's
question. Yeah.
yeah, it's still a relative issue of how your body's adjusted. And I remember in college, there was a kid, no joke, his name was Michael Jackson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from Minnesota, and he lived way up on Minnesota.
Yeah.
And it got to about 20 degrees here, and they're still walking around in shorts
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
granddad's.
Because
And
yeah, northern Minnesota, forget it. You're in the zeros all the time.
yeah, he was like, this ain't cold for him. I mean, he used to having winters where it's consistently, 4 feet of snow everywhere.
Right.
This was
Yeah.
back in the early '90s, and we were talking about it's like it's this ain't that bad. I mean, he's used to like even worse. So it's like walking around in a pair of shorts like this is cool. I mean,
Everything
it's like
everything is relative.
exactly. He wore like abundantly up. So yeah, I know it's cold. It's just funny how we perceive cold based on how cold it really is and how our body
Right.
adjusted to cold.
Hey, did you get to Chili Fest?
I did. It was a lovely and super warm basement at the
Nice.
House Nick Congregational Church. I didn't stay for the whole thing. Went down, said hi to neighbors, saw some folks. As you are aware at this point, I have dietary challenges, so I did not get to taste anything. Smelled wonderful. Bake sale raffle. Good to see a lot of folks there in the community, and yeah, no, it was a great time. And as we kind of continue in the year to be obviously more events. For example, there's a Ukrainian New Year's party at Granite Links on Saturday.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either. So my understanding is John Keenan's going to go down, and I'm going to go down too and say hello and see what's happening.
Nice, nice. And of course, Lunar New Year is coming up too this month.
Yep, Year of the Horse starts on February 17th at sundown. So that is the start of Lunar New Year. The New Year celebration will be on the 22nd, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in North Quincy High School from Quincy Asian Resources and other volunteers. And, thanks to North Quincy High School as always, and people and the staff and the students and supporting us on that event. And it's about 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Even though it's the holiday itself is really a 2-day holiday, it's the sundown to sun up because of lunar calendar. I mean, it's considered a holiday week in China. We have basically have 2 weeks off. So if you watched any of the foreign news, you can watch the insane traffic jams that could be going on in China shortly as people was running around the country to get back to their families for the New Year break.
Yeah, yeah. It's the 38th annual, I think, in Quincy this year.
Yeah, it's these festivals going on for a long time. They started as really small events, both the August Moon and New Year's Festival, and it's ballooned into representation of the entire Quincy community, and enjoyed by at this point multi-generational families
Hmm.
who are went to the first few ones 30 years ago, and you have kids now. I mean, you're definitely the multi-generational component. So
Oh, sure. Yeah, and multicultural too. It's everybody.
yeah, it's very much representing a lot of the Pan Asian community as best it can. But it's also a winter event, unlike the summer event where August has very low probability of bad weather despite just humidity and heat. Low
Hmm.
probability of rainfall. I've done a few of these things where the show was on despite the snow, and people
Hmm.
did show up. And North Quincy High School is very walkable for the surrounding community. So if people can't drive in because they can't make it that day, people still come by walking over.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And if public transportation's running, the T is right across the street too. So that's good.
Yeah, yeah. I've been there. Like I said, I've been there like post bad storm days, and
Sure.
the room is still full.
Yep. And it's still free after all these years.
It is. It's largely supported by many of the sponsors and people who rent tables in the auditorium. So, always encourage people to just, at least stop by and say hi to folks that are basically supporting, paying for an event for you to
Yep.
enjoy.
I think Quincy Asian Resources is in its 25th year this year, if I'm not mistaken.
It was incorporated in November 2021. It was the corporate incorporation month.
2001, not 21, right?
Sorry,
Yeah.
2001, 2001.
Yeah. So
So
yeah.
yeah, for incorporation purposes, this coming November, the 25th year of its incorporation.
Yeah, it has grown immensely since then. It's gone multi-state now.
And it's also an unusual organization to survive two recessions. I mean, you may remember in 2001 was right before the dot-com bust in
Yes.
2003, and there wasn't any money with this organization. I mean, it was running on like two small grants for 3 years, and then it had to get past the '09 recession. And
Hmm.
those of you that have worked in a not-for-profit community, those time periods, a lot of not-for-profits were killed off during that decade because of lack of money. Period. I mean, people were losing money not just in the stock market, but in their own pockets. People were getting laid
Right.
off. People had to take salary reductions. Corporate and business earnings, whether it be small business or big businesses, were margins were shrinking. Foundations took a monster hit on their portfolios, so they couldn't
Mm,
raise as much money. And places like the United Way actually encouraged strongly to have not-for-profits merge to try to salvage services locally, and some chose not to, and they died off. So
right.
you can tell the strength of the economy locally in a very odd way, but the growth of how many not-for-profit agencies there are because there's just enough donations to go around.
Yes.
But when the economy turns sour and hits a great recession, which is by far, super insane sour, not smaller organizations that are heavily donation dependent will not survive. And we've been very fortunate for the last few years, especially going into COVID and had the COVID insanity in terms of the economy, and then out of COVID, despite having hyperinflation and your dollar being stretched hard, the reality is unemployment's been still under 5%. The GDP growth, despite a couple of I think 2 quarters that were negative, is still positive. And wages are slowly but steadily equalizing against inflation. I think it's a little too late because inflation's done so much damage to your wages, but it's creeping together. But at the same time, though, we're to no higher, no fire. It looks like right now,
Yes.
and the economy is definitely becoming K-shaped. The people of highest means, and it's not just people, with $250,000. We're talking really rich people are able to, spend money, and the rest
Yes.
of us are trying to, maintain some survival mode and hoard money for one, big expense like a vacation if we can do it. And of course, that's relative to each individual. So what I say, that's why it's a very vague statement, because it's
Right.
every individual has a different concept of what works for them regarding
Of course. Yeah.
what your expenditures are. So it is very vague on purpose because it's individual decisions. But yeah, I mean, I fully expect at some point we'll have a natural recession at some stage in life where it's an average 12 to 15 years ish. There's a bump in the economy and we'll go through a recessionary period because of COVID and all the federal money that was thrown at all of us for 3 years. It slowed down the potential recession. And of course, people forget, well past 1 million people lost their lives to COVID.
Hmm.
A portion of that population was working age.
Yes, that's right. And that impacts revenue, right?
It affects tax revenues in the run. It affects our birth rate in the long run.
Hmm.
It also affects our employee availability and the federal government's complete inability to address the immigration issue because they're all stupid. Because they don't actually live in the real world where I don't know, people that need jobs. Is a reflection of the fact that it's going to continue to be much, much harder on the United States in the next 20 years because of declining birth rate, lack of people to work, and automation can only get you so far. So, it's going to be it's going to be an interesting time, which I hope to be retired from politics by the time we get to that stage.
I was going to ask you about, there's the artificial intelligence factor that really hasn't been talked about in terms of supplementing the workforce.
It's really this is really a nascent issue
Yeah,
because the artificial intelligence, while it's getting a lot of hype, I think people still treat it more as a toy than a tool in some ways. And people are using it as a tool is very narrow, specific circumstances, and even
hmm
then, it's specialized tools, and it's not as easy as it sounds because it's still a garbage in, garbage out problem. So whatever you feed it, it's going to spit it out. If it's bad stuff going in, then it's bad stuff coming out. And the
Yeah,
problem is that it doesn't have the ability to tell you it's bad stuff because it has no judgment call ability.
right. Yeah, it's we were taught in journalism school a long time ago, trust but verify.
And again, the large language models in certain areas, cannot verify because it's simply garbage in, garbage out. It isn't,
Right,
as you point out, like journalism school, right? You get a bunch of information, then you go talk to people,
right,
and go find a trail, and not everything can be found on the internet. For example,
correct.
you would visit the location. For example, let's say it's a story happened on some street corner of a tragedy, and the reporter like yourself would go to that street corner, look at the street corner, look around
Yep,
the area,
yep.
and
Talk to people in the area. Yeah, absolutely. It's called ground truth. That's the term.
yeah, and the reality is that an AI is not going to go question. It'll get a Google satellite picture from 4 years ago or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the cautionary tale I have with folks is that people need to still utilize their cognitive thinking or critical thinking beyond AI. And again, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if it doesn't exist in the ether of the information it's collecting from, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just not been in that medium. My favorite one is still law cases. People are using the internet for law right now. And yeah, there's a lot of legal cases out there through many libraries, but Westlaw, whether we like it or not, is a paid service which has everything
hmm
digitized in the United States in all 50 states, jurisdictions, and counties, much more than anywhere on the internet. It is a paid service, which is obviously, target lawyers and law schools.
Sure.
But the thing about that is that they're developing their own internal AI to scrub their own internal databases using the things we learned in law school of how to do legal research.
Yes. Yeah.
And as they perfect that AI within their ecosystem of information, which is not publicly accessible on the wider internet in its full form, they're going to be, charge law firms, law schools,
hmm
et cetera, to be able to utilize their AI using law school taught formats of how to
Yes.
do legal research.
Yes, because they have to pay people to keep that up to date. I mean, the laws are changing hourly across the country.
Absolutely. And that information is then digitized, collected by Westlaw, and then brought up and digitized on there. So people don't realize there are things like superior court cases, but
hmm
district court rarely has a case that's published. But it's hard to find superior court cases easily online.
hmm
They are public records. But things like Westlaw, for example, allows you to collect 150 years of, let's say you need to search 150 years worth of superior court cases in Massachusetts. And people may not remember that at one time, the courts actually had different court rulings in different superior court jurisdictions, which result in somewhat conflicting results.
hmm
So, if depending what time you're talking about, you need to know what you're looking at from a legal research standard. If you're trying to write a brief or do a case or writing a paper for law school, there's these little nuances that large language models using today's internet on the public information availability
Yeah.
would not be able to do, which Westlaw over time, because AI is an evolutionary tool, over time, Westlaw will continue to evolve its AI to
hmm
largely reflect how we are taught in law school and how to find things.
Yep. Yep. It's like I say, it's a nascent technology, so it has to start somewhere.
Yeah, and the automation issue is real. It's going to really start with white collar jobs, especially those evolving software programming, because you're going to have the computer program itself. It's a very science fiction in some ways. But I actually was listening to a very interesting podcast the other day about software jobs, because if you are looking around unemployment layoffs, you're going to see a lot of software companies doing layoffs. And it's interesting conversation because automation is not new. Automation's been around since assembly line,
It's
essentially.
the industrial age, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just evolving, changing how we do automation
Right.
as technology gets better. And it's interesting because one of the things podcaster was talking about was the fact that software engineers are not unionized, and it's not a demographic that the general public has a lot of compassion for because they're high paid, high educated folks, and they themselves don't see the valuation of banding together to protect their jobs.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I'm with union support, but I do understand that it's not for everybody, not for every profession. I think that's kind of the thing people have to understand. It's definitely for different folks want different needs in their employment, but
Sure.
software in particular, there are no such things like a software employees union or
Right.
software employees association.
No, no, in many cases they're highly competitive actually against each other and don't, they want to keep their secrets to themselves.
And to become outdated very quickly.
Yes.
If you're not like a key component of a software industry, you become outdated and obsolete if you can't keep up with your own education requirements,
Right.
keep up, or you're part of a central innovation team. You may have noticed that Meta, Facebook in particular, has been poaching by giving grotesque salaries to specific software engineers that can help with them with AI, and then also
Hmm.
terminating a lot of software engineers that cannot.
Yes. Yes. They are definitely moving in that direction for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of those stories that's not told because the media doesn't see value in this conversation. Frankly, most people, they're listening probably don't unless they have a specific interest in this industry or are impacted by this industry as in the software industry. So, um, I don't think AI is, going to take over a lot of the white collar jobs or analyst jobs immediately. I think people to try to do that has given it up. I think something over 90% of all businesses that tried to incorporate AI last year has stopped that experiment. It's just not ready in the
Hmm.
corporate world. Not to say it's not coming, but I do caution folks that it does take time for these things to mature. And does it hurt for you to get updated on what's going on in the world? Absolutely not. You should always be updated on what's going on in the world. So it is coming, but as I kind of described using the law as an example, it's not as cut and dry as it seems. I got to argue with my friends in software industry about this too, and he's convinced that they can write better laws than us on AI. I'm like, sure, but the problem is that it is institutional knowledge that is a big deal, and it's hard to explain to him what institutional knowledge is because the presumption is everything's readily available, and it's not.
No, no. Yeah. It didn't exist. So how can it know? Yeah.
Well, I do this all the time in the legislature. People always talk about time immemorial. If you've been around long enough working in very specific policy areas, very specific procedures in the state house, things have changed. It always
Hmm.
changes, but you got to remember those changes. For example, the
Hmm.
clerks of the House and Senate have been there decades. They know and document all the different changes in the rules. They know the different changes going around the building. So, they have the institutional knowledge of what was before and how we got to today.
Right.
AI cannot substitute for that.
Right.
And AI cannot substitute for a tacky story, so to speak, of how certain policies became into existence because I don't write this down. It's like I have a journal biography from, when I worked as a young intern staffer all the way to now and published on the internet. This is the evolution of this law.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So there is some value still to the human experience.
I mean, I always use a good example of the AEDs, which we actually did pass a bill in the House on having AEDs available in sports stadiums and athletic facilities last week. That's now in the Senate. But I mean, when I worked for Senator Morrissey, the automatic external defibrillator Good Samaritan law was one that we passed in his office twice. We had to do two separate versions.
Mm,
I was the one that worked on that for 3 years. There is
mm.
no document internet for that. And probably until you hear this now, you didn't realize you actually worked on that. And it's the reason why you see an AED on airplanes and TD Bank and shopping plazas because the
Hmm.
Good Samaritan law that doesn't create liability if people use it correctly.
Right.
And the thing pretty much automated. It tells you what to do. So it's not like
Yes.
it's that difficult to figure out. So it only works if you're dead, by the way, because the defibrillation has to occur. So essentially dead. So, but I mean, many are listening, look at that device, don't even think about it twice, but don't realize how it got there unless you talk to me, because I was the one that wrote the laws, when I worked in Senator Morrissey's office to encourage businesses to have those devices.
Yep. Yep. So that's a good example right there. And AI still has to be coded. I mean, there'll be coding opportunities going forward.
It's going to code itself.
You think?
Yeah. What's scary about AI for software engineers is that everybody wants the kids to do software, all this STEM stuff, which is great. But they're under some misconception they're going to be an essential part of the economy in 10 years. They will not be an essential part of the economy. It's going to be all outsourced to AI. And that's one of the most intriguing things about AI, because algorithms have always been able to do their own calculations. You could actually, programming itself is not new. But it's going to do much more intricate programming where you don't need to know anything about software writing to do software. So you could just say, hey, I want to do, let's say you do want to do an animated series.
Yeah.
And it's 10 years in the future, and go, I want this animated, I want these things, I want these people, I want these descriptions. Just write the whole description out, feed it to the AI. The AI will push something back out to you, already programmed with animation. And you can decide if you like it or not. If you don't like it, you go back to the AI. Well, I want the sky slightly less blue. Can you bring it down? And you want to be super precise in art. You can say, I wanted this specific palette.
Interesting.
And the AI would then reprogram itself
to
the palette you want and bring it back to show you again. If you like it, then you're good. If you don't, you don't. So then, as we talked before, deep fakes is also not new, but also super intricate. So, you could actually deep fake public figures into your series rather seamlessly today, but really super seamlessly in the future. Welcome to the threat in the entertainment industry regarding AI.
And the art world too, right?
In the art world, and writers and screenwriters, this is what we talked about last year. So, kids should learn how to program. But I'm going to tell you all right now that it's not new, but it's going to be much more advanced. That in a decade, AI is going to write itself, and anybody can be a programmer. It's no longer be a central, any kind of essential skill.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Stand by for the future. It's here now.
Well, how many people need to know software engineering to program an AI? It can program itself because the AI can do it itself. So you just need a software engineer to help improve the AI itself. But at some point, the AI is going to self-improve.
Yikes. Okay. Wow. So you're only limited by your own imagination at that point.
Well, and again, it also dumbs us down a bit, right?
That's true.
We will get dumbed down on our own skill sets because we're going to create a lesser group of folks of those skill sets. I mean, as we learned during COVID, it turns out a lot of people don't know how to cook. So,
but they tried.
They tried. Didn't realize how dependent people were in the restaurant industry until COVID made it very apparent, and not uniquely just Americans. I mean, Chinese had a big problem. Japan, Singapore. I mean, England. I mean, it's universal in first world countries that cooking skills have largely degraded, and some will revive because of COVID. I never realized exactly how degraded globally in first world countries cooking skills were.
We're so dependent now. We can just pick up the phone and order something or have it delivered to us now.
And I'm not that old, but I'm getting the attention that I am clearly a dinosaur in certain things, because the idea of spending $10 on a service fee for delivery for a $6 item seems very ludicrous. But it is a real thing that people do.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And my mind's blown by that. I think I'm becoming a dinosaur in these kind of thoughts. But if I'm paying $6, I'm paying $10 to get it to me, something's wrong with this picture.
Right, exactly. What's been going on at the State House? Hey, did I read where there was a delegation from Denmark at the State House this week?
Maybe. No one invited me.
Oh, okay. I found it interesting, just given the whole controversy with Greenland recently.
The people. Well, I mean, Boston is still a major consulate city. There's about 45 plus consulates inside the greater Boston area. As there's some of the smaller ones on Old Crown Colony here in Quincy. So we're still a global hub. We have FIFA coming this summertime. Put aside all the schools, historical things, and the hospitals and all that stuff. I mean, it's still a very involved economy in technology, in moving foods and services. I mean, we're still a seafood exporter. We're the big seaport and the hub for export import in the New England area. All the major train lines for cargo comes through Boston. So, it's not unusual to have consulates or dignitaries from other countries visit. I mean, Parliament in England annually sends a delegation of parliamentarians to Boston and other parts of the country just to get for lack of a better term, cultural exposure of other governments.
Right.
How other governments operate. It's a
Yeah.
information exchange, and the English do that with their parliament annually, and regardless of political party, just
Yeah.
because they feel it's a good idea to get them out to talk to other governments. This is kind of the thing that we really should do more of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, we're so, I mean, relatively young, right? 250 years old compared to Europe.
Yeah, but we're actually one of the oldest running governments compared to Europe.
Oh, continuous, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we have no surprisingly no breaks in government operations in terms of a country. The British technically has the longest because of continuation of not just royalty but parliament.
Right.
But the rest of Europe, for the most part, has had multiple forms of government, with monarchies to military dictatorships to monarchies to
Yep.
democracies back to monarchies. The French, in particular, have a crazy history.
Yes.
And then countries break apart, reform, become neo something else. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
before World War I, before World War II, then you got the Cold War, and you got the post-Cold War. A lot of those lines don't make sense in Europe. They've all been moved around. So I mean, that's something that we don't do a lot here that we should do more of. I mean, I remember one year a delegation from New Zealand came in. They were traveling the country again on government information exchange. I actually spoke to a group from Latin America. They had 5 countries come in of a combination of government officials, elected officials, and not-for-profits doing a government to government information exchange. And
Yeah.
see, our state governments is kind of unique because we're federalism. We're our own kind of independent entity with specific powers in the Constitution, which
Commonwealth, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, we have the U.S. Constitution creates specific powers for each of the categories of government, which is what federalism is. However, I mean, given the current state of politics in D.C., I like my federalism. States should have and should continue to have its own independence under the current system. It's the independence the Constitution dictates.
Right.
So yes, I mean, this is something that we don't get. We should do, but we don't do in this country. Is that you should be taking legislators and counselors and congressmen and their staff, and go to other countries, to other governments, and talk about how things are done there. These kinds of exchanges are important. And before COVID, there was more of them. After COVID, it's been tougher. And unfortunately, as you guys can imagine, what happens in DC actually impacts our ability to go visit places, and also impacts other countries' ability to visit us.
Right. Yeah. Not only for legislators, but for regular people too.
Yeah, it affects all of us.
Right.
So, I mean, certain programs that allow elected officials to meet other elected officials in other countries, has been somewhat dampened. And those programs also run by the U.S. State Department, and the U.S. State Department's not about informational exchange anymore to create better quality government officials.
Right. At least under the current administration, it probably change in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, as we said earlier at the beginning about AI and institutional knowledge, every new president wants to leave their stamp in government, which I fully understand, pushing the agenda. But like my experience with a lot of governors passing through here in Massachusetts, the governors folks have zero institutional knowledge of how they got here today. They just assumed the world started when they showed up. It's really interesting phenomena observed through multiple administrations now. And the one that actually had the least issues, was oddly enough, was Paul Cellucci, because he was a state senator, a state rep, governor, acting governor, right? And he had actually, while we don't always agree with Cellucci, it was clear that he understood the institutional knowledge components going back right into the 80s. So
interesting. Yeah. Well, of course, Maura Healey was Attorney General for almost 10 years. So.
Yeah, but not the same, because of the fact that you were not actually engaged in the function of government, running the state government.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it was still the executive branch. So yeah.
Yeah, and you have to engage the legislature in how you do that. So people like Paul Cellucci, Michael Dukakis, actually could communicate with the legislature pretty well. Those who have no people from their own office that has experience with the legislature has a very difficult time dealing with us as a collective.
You're so difficult to deal with. You legislators, you.
Hey, 200 voices gets pretty complicated. People forget that part. You have to communicate essentially 200 of us because, any one of us could make your life crazy depending on what it is. So,
That's right.
people have this misconception that you just have to like talk to the Senate president and the speaker. There's some truth to that, but not entirely.
Right.
You could get, a series of reps and senators from one region, get together and decide just to, annoy the governor. It can get very difficult.
It's called a caucus, right?
It's called a caucus.
Yeah.
Right. You have different caucuses of various interests. So a little inside politics, folks.
Yeah, it's fun.
People perceive that strictly from the top. There's some truth to that, but that's also not some truth to that as well, depending on the circumstances.
Well, and that's by design. It's designed to be messy and slow, right? On purpose.
We call it deliberative.
Yeah, deliberative. Okay.
So who was I talking to about this? Pennies. Let's talk about pennies for a moment.
I was just going to bring the penny situation up. Okay, yeah.
So I was talking to Boston Globe about this. There was a Boston Globe story about pennies I was in, and some
Okay.
talking about the penny impacted the ending of pennies. My response to the Globe was that this is what happened. We don't have a deliberative process. And President Trump decided to end pennies by law because he has the power to do it, because the law basically says you have to make pennies. It doesn't say how many pennies you have to make. It just have to make pennies.
Right.
So his decision was making 0 pennies, which is actually in compliance with the law.
Yeah, because 0 is a number. Yeah.
0 is a number. Well, it depends who you want to talk to, a mathematician. But
well, that's true. Yeah.
But yes, it is a number. So as a result, obviously there's a penny shortage, and about 20% of the population, give or take, is underbanked. A lot of people do not use electronic payment. People really have this misconception that everyone uses electronic payment. It's not true. And as a result, other countries have phased out pennies over the course of a decade with a plan of how to phase it out. So, for example, Canada's our closest neighbor phased out the penny. It took them 10 years to phase it out.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah, it had an incremental process of a national plan of how it's going to work.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. So here they just go cold turkey with no plan. And the states are fumbling around because we have a rounding problem. We don't have pennies. So Canada has a whole even odd number system. Whatever number you're closest to is where you go to. So if you're closer to 1 cent, you go down to the 0. You're closer to 4 cents, you go to the 5.
Oh, all right.
So forth and so forth. You can see the logic here.
Yeah.
And ultimately it eliminates the concept of $1.99 because the math gets hard. And then if you're paying in cash, this is what's really addressing people paying in cash.
Yes.
That you round out the right way. Now, when you have a incremental program over decades, we have gradual phase out of the penny because it's slowly removing them. And you implement a new system of calculation for cash transactions. Eventually, the businesses will change the price structures to 0 and 5.
Yeah, right.
And
so instead of $1.99, it'd be $2 for an item. Yeah.
Exactly. And I still don't understand the 99 concept anymore, but
it's a psychological thing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's worn out its welcome a long time ago, to be honest with you. But regardless, so that's what happens, that countries get a penny. It's a gradual process where businesses evolve to develop a 0 and 5 system and eliminate pennies as part of their sales. And we actually have a no discrimination. Actually, everyone has a no discrimination regarding price payment on products. So if I pay, $1, you pay $1, pay by credit card, the price of that payment's $1, and pay by cash is still $1. Offer, as you can see out there, some places trying to charge you fees for credit cards, or offer discounts. Gas stations have a special law that allows them to charge more for credit cards.
Yes.
Versus cash. Again, credit cards gas stations make money on a total gallon sale, not a percentage of sales.
Yep.
X whatever gallons is, whatever pennies to get out of it, that's what they get. So that's how that kind of works. But the issue here is that since administration didn't address the issue, the Treasury Department has issued no guidance. The Congress has a bill that has not moved. States are now left to their own devices to try to figure out how to do this in a uniform manner. And it seems like states around the country are trying to move closer to Canada. And why is this important to you? Well, for example, SNAP is a problem now because you can't overcharge, undercharge SNAP. The federal government is very strict about that. So it affects grocery stores about the penny calculations on SNAP. You will not know you've been cheated or not because there's inconsistency in storefronts regarding how they handle cash transactions. So one may say, we're going to round you up. One may say, we're going to round you down. There's no
Right.
consistency in the matter.
Yeah.
And then the inconsistency of the matter also creates inconsistency for electronic transactions because you want the consistency to show that everyone's getting treated equally in what they're paying for.
Yes, I see. Yeah. So it's really, it's the wild, wild west when it comes to it right now because it's either the individual retailer or the state trying to come up with a policy, but there's nothing uniform.
That's absolutely correct. And this is kind of the problem we're running across on this penny issue, which affects not all of us exactly, but definitely affects over 20% of the population, give or take, that are underbanked.
And then what happens if a new administration comes in and starts making pennies again?
Well, that is the challenge of democracies, right? When we allow things and want things to change because change is supposed to create innovation, new ideas, but also, take a step back and look what happened and see if we need to address issues that were done before.
Right.
Hopefully, in a good public policy, the interest of the public in mind when you're doing that. And you're right. In 3 years, this may become I won't say mood. It could be another type of chaos because once you try
because
to
everybody switched over to the new policy and then you have to switch back.
you have to unwind, right?
Right.
It's like we decided to go all metric one day.
That's right. Oh, that was a disaster. I remember that.
Yeah, I'm a little young for that one, but the attempt for this country to go from inches to centimeters, wasn't phased in properly.
Oh, it didn't go well.
Did not
And it
go well.
didn't last very long either.
It did not. Other countries actually had been able to go from the British metric system, British metric to universal metric.
Yeah.
And they did it over the course of phased over years.
Yes.
The United States did not do a good way of phasing it in.
No.
And that's why we have not joined pretty much everybody else on centimeters and kilometers and Celsius. Because the U.S. government couldn't figure out how to do it properly.
That's right. That's right. That's why you get so frustrated sometimes using tools because so many things are made in metrics and we don't have the proper wrench to fix it.
Well, I mean, wrench sets comes in millimeters and inches.
That's right.
I have old centimeter wrenches downstairs from my father's, 40 years old.
Yep.
There's a set of inches wrenches next to that. And you
Yep.
have to know which one you were using. And remember, now we're just trying to date ourselves, but I mean, foreign cars, European cars in particular, had higher maintenance costs because they had to get all different tools.
That's correct. Yes.
At one time, foreign cars were all only metric, and there was no universal tools. So
Right.
your mechanic said European cars had all European metric systems in their garages that other cars didn't want to pay for because 50 years ago, buying extra tools they weren't going to use was basically using money.
Right. And it was the same for foreign countries buying American cars. They didn't have the standard tools. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the reality of it, right? Why would I buy a bunch of tools I'll never use?
Right.
Right. So, and you actually brought a good point about, tariffs and cars, right? I mean, not every country wants a U.S. vehicle, and one of the reasons is likely to be because of maintenance.
Yeah.
They've not reached a critical mass locally where your cars can get serviced. So why would you try to sell a car that can't get serviced?
Right. Yeah. You can't just do things unilaterally. It has global impact.
Oh, we're feeling that right now of DC. So I'm just saying, unilateral decision making has created exhaustion. I think was it the people who've been talking to me already in January after being exhausted with news cycles last cycle. We started the news with a lot of news cycles in January. And, we're in the business of trying to keep updated the best we can, but there's too much to keep up with now. It's exhausting.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Hey, well, all we can do is talk about it every week here.
Oh, hey, as you can tell, people, I'm not shy with my opinions about certain things. But yeah, I mean, this is how it is. And next week we'll talk. What I say today may be totally irrelevant because keep moving so fast.
Things change, yeah. Have you heard any rumblings? This is an election year, folks seeking re-election or not seeking re-election in your colleagues?
Well, I mean, Representative Bill Galvin from Canton announced his retirement after 36 years.
Wow.
So actually, he came in the same class as Speaker Mariano, and Tony Cabral from New Bedford also the same class as the Speaker. So that group is moving on. Representative Markey not
Mhm.
Senator Markey, Representative Chris Markey from Dartmouth is going to run for district attorney. So that seat's now opened up.
Oh, okay.
One of my other classmates, actually, Chris Markey is actually a classmate. He came in with me. Kim Ferguson, a Republican, she came with me. I believe she's going to announce for non-reelection soon if she hasn't done so already. One of my Asian caucus members, Bernard Howard, Cambodian from Lowell, won the special state Senate seat Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Very exciting. It should be the first Cambodian elected to the state Senate, be technically the third Asian and second Asian woman elected to the state Senate here.
Wow.
And the first, actually, should be the second refugee too, elected ever, to my knowledge, elected to the state Senate.
Oh,
So,
okay. All right.
so it's very exciting. She's leaving my caucus in the House and moving to the Senate. So that's another change. Opens up another seat in Lowell. And then who else? I think there'll be more change on the way. Christine Barber from Somerville. Is it Somerville or Medford? I think she's Somerville Medford combo. She's in that area. She's leaving to run for Pat Jalen's state Senate seat. Pat Jalen's retiring from the state Senate. So she's going to run over there. There's a lot going on in movement still. It's still early on in the legislature, and I expect some of my friends will be, looking for either greener pastures or retirement. Natalie Blaze already left. Natalie Blaze is from, I think, East Hampton.
Okay.
She's in that like Amherst area.
Okay.
Zone. So she already left to take a job at UMass out there, Amherst out there. So, that seat already opened up, and we were not going to have a special election. It'll be a normal election. So yeah, there's a lot of change starting, and it's still early, plenty of time.
Oh, sure.
Secretary of State Bill Galvin announced for re-election yesterday, which may become the longest-serving election officer appointed or elected in the country.
Yeah, it's early 70s, I think he was first elected to office. Not that office, but
No, he's 75 now.
Right.
He was elected secretary. He was sworn in Secretary of State in 95.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. 25 years ago. Yeah.
No, 35 years.
35 years ago.
Yeah.
So Secretary of State sworn in, he was elected in 94, sworn in 95.
Yeah.
So he's running for election. Obviously, governor's announced, lieutenant governor's announced,
yes.
treasurer's announced, the auditor's announced. So all the constitutional officers running for election. Locally, my good friend, and I always will say this, I don't care what other people think, Mike Morrissey, is topping off 50 years of politics, retiring from the district attorney's office, which, again, 50 years in office. I mean, easily one of the longest serving electeds. And I like to remind folks, he's done a lot for a lot of people over a lot of years in his professional and personal capacity as a state rep, state senator, and district attorney, being helpful to folks. So, and also steward the Democratic Party. People also forget that, Michael Morrissey, standard bearer of the party, never wavered, never said stuff, never did things that made you kind of a fly-by-night Democrat. He's not that kind of guy. So, we're going to miss Michael. We will. I've been around. I've seen a lot of people I've missed over the years too. But people are going to realize how much he meant as an elected official, still be in our community. But how important it is. And the Democratic Party is going to miss him as well, not just in Quincy, but statewide, as we need people to fill those voids of leadership. And then as far as I know, John Keane, myself, Bruce, and Ron are all running for election till one of them tell me otherwise. And we're just kind of waiting out to see how locally the election cycle goes. I think next door to us, Bill Driscoll, the senator from Milton, has drawn a Democratic primary, I believe. And just kind of waiting, there's plenty of time on the clock. We got to see what people are thinking about running for election.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy year. So, of course, a slew of ballot questions as well that are in the works. So
yeah, 12
of them right now.
Oh my God, 12. I mean,
the ballot's going to be 10 pages long.
I'm going to get so many complaints come November. I know it's coming because people are just going to be looking at this ballot. They're going to get angry at the legislator. because they think we did this to them.
Right.
We did not do this to you folks. Just letting you know now, which you're gonna call me and email me unhappy in about 7 months.
Mark your words now.
Yeah, you're gonna be complaining to me in about 7, 8 months.
Yeah.
Size of the ballot.
No, these
Provided,
are all special interest groups that are sponsoring these. Yeah.
yeah, we have a very fluid and easy accessible ballot question
Yeah.
system. Again, which may not be a good thing after this experience.
We'll see. Yeah.
We shall see. So yeah, we'll see what other things going on. Obviously, you guys know there's a U.S. Senate race between Seth Moulton and Ed Markey. We see what Congressman Lynch, if he picks up an opponent, there's always rumblings here and there, but until someone actually does it, it's just talk.
Right.
And of course, locally, we have a new council, and the mayor has his State of the City address coming up this Monday night.
Yes.
I will be attending unless there's a family problem here. I will be there, barring a family situation.
Yeah. Monday, February 9th, 7 p.m. auditorium at Quincy High School. Folks can watch it right here on QATV too.
Yep. And also remember, you can watch QATV council meetings.
Absolutely. Yes. You can watch them live. You can watch them on our website after the fact, and they're archived going back a long time.
And I'm thankful for QATV showing our own sessions as well as us selecting certain public hearings as well. Obviously, you can watch MAlegislature.gov, which we announce every time at the end. So you can watch our archive stuff at the state legislature and look up bills and orders and journals and anything else you want to find.
Yep.
That we put out there in public, including committee votes and things like that. So yeah, there's a QATV continues to be a great resource on local information as well as state information. And of course, I enjoy my time with Mark and Stateview as well, which exposes me outside of the immediate area, which I'm not quite sure is good for everyone.
It makes you put a tie on too.
I'm half jesting, half joking. Although I do admit I do comb my hair better, not for you.
Well, we're a little more casual here on Tacky Talk.
Well, we actually did plug Tacky Talk on Mog's show.
Oh, did you? Thank you for that.
Yeah. It's like, we want to see the more casual, off-script version.
Unplugged, Tacky Unplugged.
Yeah, go to Joe Catalano's show, not Mark Crosby's show.
Well, seeing as we're here talking about it, let's give out all the contact information.
Yeah, room 42 at the State House. We are staffed. If you're in the area, free to come by. Obviously there's meetings all over the place some days, and the office is running around the building all day some days. So, but we generally would try to keep one person in there minimum, despite everyone trying to run around the State House and meetings. 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370 is the office. If the reception does not pick up, it is an automated system. It is. I've heard complaints about the system. I can't do anything about the system. You have to be patient moving through the system because it is not my office. The person who runs the office is first. So 617-722-2370. Hit anybody in the office, we'll get your voicemail. Tacky.chan@mhouse.gov, tackey.chan@mhouse.gov is the email. Obviously, talk about MAlegislature.gov a moment ago. TackyChan.org is the resource page, tackychan.org, and State Reserve Tacky Chan Facebook, which also has an Instagram. We also do QATV with you every week or every 2 weeks, the best we can, to give you updates. And again, if you don't like something, email Joe, QATV@qatv.org. Please send all your complaints to him. I don't want to hear about it. Just send it to him.
I'll make sure you get a copy of it.
Yeah, you're on payroll now, Joe. We just didn't tell you.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
You receive all my complaints.
Well, stay warm, Tacky.
Stay warm, be well, and seriously, it is going to get cold again, everyone. So keep an eye on your pipes. Take care of your neighbors, and most importantly, take care of yourself as you head into the frigid weather.
Absolutely. One day it will be spring.